I'm the Director of Public Services for Van Buren Township. With me is Elizabeth Renault from our Department of Public Services. And I'll be introducing Bert Kosick later, who is from Newman Smith. As you may remember, a year ago, we had the last Parks and Recreation Committee meeting, and it was in person in the Otisville Sheldon Room. I actually got the pleasure of being part of that meeting, and I'm back again today to assist.
Reggie's asking to be let her in the meeting. I don't know what happened.
I'll reach out to her, Matt. Go ahead.
Thank you. What was it? Yeah. And so because of COVID-19 for the last year, we've been doing Zoom meetings. This is done to keep us all safe and to make sure we can still do business. One of the things that's slightly different with the Zoom meeting, with these public meetings, is if there is any action taken, such as passing an agenda, approving minutes, or any other actions, those have to be roll call voted. And what that means is the chair will ask the recording secretary to run a roll call vote on a motion, and the recording secretary will call out the names of each commissioner who has has rights to vote, and you actually have to physically say yes or nay, yay or nay, in order to, you have to be heard to meet the legal requirements. So we appreciate you bearing with that process, because sometimes it gets tedious with all the roll call votes you have to do. However, we'll try to make it, we've done it a couple times, and we'll try to make it as easy as possible for our commissioners or our committee members. So with that, I will let the chair, Daniel Bellinger, open the meeting.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Hope everybody's had a good year, and looking forward to some exciting times here in Parks and Rec for sure. But we will get right into things and try to get through all the formalities as quick as possible so we can move on to the good stuff here. So just to call roll here, Daniel Bellinger here, Clerk Leon Wright.
I'm here.
Denise Willoughby.
Here.
Tammy Wall.
Here.
Director Jennifer Wright. And Director Jennifer Zanglin is also not here.
She's excused.
Director Matthew Bess.
Here.
Co-chair Charles Coleman. Don't think we have him today. And I don't think we have Miss Knobs today either. Todd O'Neill.
Here.
No student rep. As I said, Deputy Director Jennifer Zanglin's not with us today, and Recording Secretary Doring.
Here.
And Executive Assistant Elizabeth Renaud.
Here.
And just moving right in, we're going to need a motion for the approval of the agenda for today.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda for today.
I second the motion.
Motion by Mr. O'Neill, seconded by Ms. Wall. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Or, we need the roll call vote, correct? Correct. Okay, so Recording Secretary Doring, if you wouldn't mind doing a roll call vote for that.
Sure. Todd O'Neill.
Here. Aye.
Tammy Wall.
Yes.
Denise Willoughby.
Here. Aye.
Leon Wright.
Yes.
Daniel Bellinger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Okay, moving right in, we need a motion for the approval of the minutes from February 11th, 2020.
I make the motion, we approve the minutes of February 20th, 2020, I believe.
February 11th.
Is that correct?
February 11th.
I second the motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Clerk Leon Wright, seconded by Tammy Wall. Could we have a roll call vote on that as well?
Todd O'Neill.
Aye.
Tammy Wall.
Aye.
Denise Willoughby.
Aye.
Leon Wright.
Yes.
Daniel Bellinger.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. So I don't think we have any old business on the agenda, but the first item on the new business list here is the election of officers. I don't know what the formal process for that would be.
You just need a motion. I start off, I make that motion to keep you as the president, as the chair.
I'll second that.
So does that suffice for re-electing all officers?
You could.
Motion by Clerk Wright, seconded by Denise Willoughby, and we'll need a roll call vote for that as well.
Todd O'Neill,
Aye.
Tammy Wall,
Aye.
Denise Willoughby,
Aye.
Leon Wright,
Aye.
Daniel Bellinger.
Aye. Motion passes.
There's also the position of co-chair, which is currently held by Charles Coleman.
Held by who?
Charles Coleman.
Oh, that's good. He's absent. So I make the motion to keep Charles Coleman as co-chair.
I'll second that one too.
Motion by Clerk Wright, seconded by Denise Willoughby. Roll call vote for that as well, please.
Todd O'Neill,
Aye.
Tammy Wall,
Aye.
Denise Willoughby,
Aye.
Leon Wright,
Aye.
Daniel Bellinger.
Aye. Motion passes. So I think at this point I pass it off to our next speaker, who will discuss proposed updates to the 2021 meeting schedule.
Thank you. Due to the feasibility study that we're about to talk about and the timing that needs to take place for the feasibility study and the interaction between the rec committee and the township for the study, staff has proposed and recommends adding 2 meetings to the schedule. I know this committee meets every other month. However, the staff is proposing, the board, or the committee moves today to add a meeting in March and a meeting in May. So we would be adding in the same date as it's always been on the, what is it, the second Tuesday? Is that correct? Second Tuesday of the month for March and May. So that's what staff is recommending, and we'd be looking for a motion for that.
Is this the study for, what is this for? What, the rec hall or what?
It's to allow additional meetings to facilitate continued conversation and discussion, and perhaps a recommendation in the future for the community center project from the
Okay.
Recreation Committee.
Okay,
Okay, I'll motion to add 2 meetings to March and May of 2021, the second Tuesday at the same time we usually meet. About 5:30.
I support that.
Motion by Ms. Wall, seconded by Clerk Wright. Need a roll call vote for that as well.
Todd O'Neill,
aye.
Tammy Wall,
Aye.
Denise Willoughby,
Aye.
Leon Wright,
Aye.
Daniel Bellinger.
Aye. Motion passes.
Fantastic. The next item on the agenda is a discussion on the proposed Van Buren Township Community Center's feasibility study and potential community center design. In your packet, you would have found the final draft of the community center feasibility study for your review. This document was a culmination of over a year and a half of work by our consultant team and staff, and was completed with the significant input from our residents. Please remember, as we look over this document today, that this is a detailed analysis of the feasibility of the building and operating of a community center as part of services provided by Van Buren Township's Parks and Rec Department. It is not a finished design or plan. These concepts that are depicted within this document show what could potentially be built by the township within the projected budget with what was asked for by the residents to be part of a community center. So it's not a finalized project plan. And that's why we're here today as the Recreation Committee, to kind of get feedback on the study, get more ideas, get questions answered, and to provide a forum for the Recreation Committee to put their significant input and their stamp on a potential project for the future of Van Buren Township. It also is an opportunity for the public to ask questions, interact, and provide ideas and comments on this project. It has been our recommendation that this additional public outreach be done, and staff is here to help facilitate that. Here today to go through this is Bert Kosick. Bert Kosick is an architect from Newman Smith, and this is what he does. And he is one of the best at what he does. And is one of the reasons why we selected Newman Smith and their firm. Bert is part of a team made up of real estate experts, landscape architects, and engineers who have helped solidify the wants and desires of the township into a cohesive vision that we are now going to start to work through and put our finishing touches on it. So with that, we're going to switch and look at a presentation from Bert Kosick. Bert?
Is it still afternoon? Good afternoon, everybody. So Elizabeth, are you going to help me through this and pull up the presentation? That's my understanding. So I am Bert Kosick. Those are very nice words, Matt. Appreciate that. So Newman Smith is a firm. We have offices both in Detroit and Southfield, and our sandbox primarily is southeastern Michigan. We do a variety of different building types, one of which is community and recreation centers, and they're probably, we love all of our projects, but these are pretty special because they do impact people's lives in a very positive way, and it's it's a particular passion that I have, and excited to help Van Buren Township hopefully move forward with this particular project. So there is a, are you pulling that up, Elizabeth?
I'm working with the moderators right now. We're
okay, good.
keeping you in suspense for a minute.
So I'll keep talking. So we do this, and we try not to be presumptuous. What might be right for you is different for maybe a neighboring community and vice versa. So initially we were engaged to embark on this feasibility study, and I might even call it sort of scope development. So that's where you probe, you ask questions, and you ask people what they want, what they need. Matt, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way the questions were framed, I think they were framed two different ways. One is, at no additional cost to you as a community, which of these options would you like? And then there were some that were below the line that said, would you like these additional things and be willing to pay for them? And of course, it gets a little bit more challenging when you have to go in your pocket and find money to pay for, things. This is probably one of the most sort of scientific projects I've been involved in terms of how we captured information. So we did engage a statewide leader in asking questions. I think, so I'm not controlling the presentation, but and by the way, one of our partners in this is Plant Moran Cressa. They function as, you probably know of Plant Moran. I think they're the largest actually accounting firm in the state of Michigan. They have a division which is called Cressa that focuses on specifically the built environment and real estate and financial analysis as it relates to these project types and for municipalities. So they couldn't be here today. Again, I'm with Newman Smith Architecture. We're actually 51 years now. So when this was put together, that was our 50-year anniversary. Russell Design, you may know of them since they've done various things for Van Buren Township, including the splash pad on the Township campus. And then, Epic as the community survey, they're the specialist in asking questions and getting results and helping us sort of understand that. So maybe go to the next slide. Maybe we can even go past this one. So the feasibility study is a document that time is a blur for me, like it is probably for all of you, but I can't believe it's gone back a year and a half since we started with this, but there was a duration of time where we, again, did surveys, tried to understand that information. I've met certainly some of you before one-on-one and other group meetings. I think we had Van Buren was embarking on a master plan for the community as a whole, and we participated in that and did a little side work study to get input as to what people might want in a building like this, and you'll see those results in a moment. But there was a deliverable that I think we made a final presentation. I think it was last month to your board of trustees, and I think that was accepted. Let's move on to the next slide. So again, the survey, and again, these are, I don't like to talk about surveys too much these days because it gets political, but look at these numbers. I mean, these are far north of 51%. So these came back very strong. In fact, our surveyor was quite surprised at the strength in these results. But, so there were general questions like, what do you think about township services in general? And so 76%, I mean, that's phenomenal. We asked if there would be an expanded community center, where would it be? The majority of people thought it made most sense for whatever reason to put it on the township office site. Top 4 community center features, so 83% strongly supported a running, walking track. 80% fitness, workout, weight, and exercise room. 78% a large gymnasium and locker room. 72% a meeting room. So the current building, for example, doesn't have a running, walking track. I think I've observed maybe people walking in circles around the existing gym. So I wouldn't really call that a track, but so that's something that currently doesn't exist. And people wished for that. The fitness, workout, weight, exercise area is currently pretty small, pretty limited. Without being too critical, not a beautiful environment. Typically, you want these to be day lit and have some views and other sorts of things. Your gymnasium is probably half the size of what you would expect. What we're proposing, you'll see in a minute, is a high school size gym, which is a typical gym that people are familiar with. I can't run up and down the court anymore that far, but younger people certainly can. You can divide those spaces into 2 halves, which probably makes the gym half of what's being proposed is probably similar to what you currently have, and then the ceiling height is really limited in your current space. So it's not basketball that typically drives that height. It might be volleyball, where the ball tends to get elevated quite high. So what's being proposed is something that would have a much more sort of clear distance between the underside of the structure and the floor, and then additional meeting space. So those were sort of the ones that I think rose to the top. Let's move on to the next slide, Elizabeth. So I didn't want to dig too deeply into the cost. Of course, those are important, but at least for this discussion is to look at the room types. And I think the goal of today is to confirm results of the survey. You know, is there anything that's happened in the last year that may have changed that? So this is broken into segments. Part of this will occur within a renovated space. Where you currently have your gym and your fitness area. So within that renovated space, the survey or the space program resulting from the survey shows that there'd be a senior game room. So I think you currently have something like that. It might be more of a shared space because I think you have some fitness equipment in there. So this will be more of a defined space specifically for seniors. And then your senior center offices are, I think there are a number of them and they're not all contiguous. So that would be reconfigured, a multi-purpose child watch room. So I don't believe you have something like this now, but it's conceivable that somebody wants to come and use this facility and that they could drop off a child in a what's called a child watch area, babysitting, if you will. Those by law, I think, are limited to 2 hours. In that space, it would also be a multi-purpose room. In addition to that, there's a multi-purpose room, more of a defined space, parks and rec offices, locker rooms, which would have showers and bathrooms as well, a fitness studio, so a defined space, for aerobics and dance and taekwondo and whatever people are doing today in studio type environments. That needs storage as well because it is more of a flexible space. You need to be able to park things, and clear the room for other type uses. I think vending, people are looking for access to food and drink, a fitness studio, again, and you need a control point, obviously, in a lobby and sort of a hallway, a way to maneuver through the space. And then as an addition onto the building is a gymnasium and track. That needs storage as well. And you have to heat and cool the building and electrify it. So it needs mechanical space. Because the track is elevated, we have stairs to get you up there and an elevator to be compliant with ADA and barrier-free code requirements. And then a new front entry. And then there are site enhancements that are, some of it, obviously, you're disrupting the current site, so you need to fix that and modify the parking lot accordingly. And then some are, some additional enhancements that you'll see in a moment. And then you need to populate the space. Obviously, if you have a fitness room, you need fitness equipment. So there's an allowance for those type things within the building. So that's sort of a general overview of what the survey has suggested would be in this building. Missing, you'll see, for example, is a swimming pool. So a swimming pool has a substantial expense associated with it, not only in initial cost, but the operating costs. And so would have put you north of maybe that target budget. And again, where people were asked, would you like something? They may have said yes. But if the next question was, would you pay for it? And then maybe the answer was maybe not so much. So all of this is sort of focused around what can be provided without, additional cost to your community. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is that was sort of a space program and gave you an overview of what the components would be and what the square foot areas that are associated with it. I think it's a little bit more helpful to see it in sort of a graphic depiction. And as Matt said, this is not intended to be a final design by any means. Is it possible that we got it right? I think because of the fact that we do this type of work every day, there's logic that's gone into what's being depicted here. And again, looking for your reactions. Currently, your building has so this is Township site. Obviously, you're familiar with it. The building is currently consists of, I call it an upside down U. So you have the police wing on one side, what's currently the community center, which used to be, it's my understanding, sort of the Department of, DPW building or whatever. And when that was built to the southwest, I'm not sure when that was done. It was, before my time. What was left over was renovated to be the community center as it exists today. So currently there's a loop road that extends around the entire site. What's being proposed here is that would be cut. Part of that came about through, we had conversations with all department heads. And I remember it was your police chief in particular that had asked, as we embark on this project, as a way to create more of a secured environment for police cars and staff. There've been incidents that we've all read about throughout the United States. So with the positioning of the addition, which is the piece, I guess I can't point to this, but thank you, Elizabeth. It does put this building on top of where the loop road is, so that gets cut. We see that as a positive. There'd be a gate on the west side of the site. So again, employees that work at City Hall and police cars and would have a secured area. I know you've got fuel back in that same area, so it secures it and keeps the public out of a place where they shouldn't be. Still a very sort of clear site plan, very intuitive to access and understand where entry points are to the building. There's a little bit of reconfiguration of the parking lot to, obviously when the building grows, we'll need some additional parking, but for the most part, that's viewed as maybe a retrofit of what's there with some modifications. So we did study. It's conceivable that this could have been a total separate building placed on the south part of the site next to the splash pad. I think, as we had discussions with people through workshops and whatnot, it made more sense to have this be engaged with the current Township Hall. There are synergies. I can imagine that by day, Monday through Friday, this community center might be populated with people from the senior center, would sort of not necessarily take over, but it's easy to access. And then that transitions over time. But, anytime we have the opportunity to share space, that makes sense. From a security standpoint, you have a sense of what's going on in the building. I think if it was a separate building, you'd probably have to increase your staff to maintain and control what happens within the building. And then so there's sort of two blocks here. One is anticipated to be the renovation of the existing community center. And then to the south of that is a new gymnasium. And even further south of that, I think people are sort of excited about having an outdoor plaza that could have multiple purposes. You could sprawl out from the gym and go to the outdoors and have access to a terrace. You could have community events that might occur both within the gym and have big open doors that's kind of sprawl out onto that plaza. And I think there were even discussions about having, movies in the evenings, where people were sort of set up and you'd display against the building. So, very sort of activated space from what's there now. So, is that the right answer? Our sense of it is that, just to sum it up, that it made sense to do it on this site as opposed to somewhere else. And then it made sense to do it as an, renovation and expansion of your current building as opposed to a separate building. And we believe there's value. There's some cost benefit to keeping the existing building and renovating that. So let's
So
move
does
on.
the new construction, oh, shoot.
Go ahead. There was a question.
It's kind of frozen, it looks like.
Should we move on and see if,
For the sake of time, there'll be an opportunity for questions from the committee during our discussion.
okay. So let's, I'm almost done here with this part. So yeah, Elizabeth, go to the next slide, please. So what you see here is the bottom center part is sort of a diagram of how these spaces, the program spaces that were depicted in that sort of spreadsheet, how they might find themselves within this building. And then the upper part of this image plan shows the track, which would be above the gym. So and then we have photographs on either side of these plans that, you know, give you a sense of the character that these spaces might have. So if I'm, so currently the entry point to the community center is sort of in the groin between the senior center. It's like the worst place to have an entrance to the building. That's where the water wants to shed down. It's back in the corner, so it's typically the most remote from where parking might be. So this envisions closing that current entry point next to the Parks Rec offices and shifting that south and pulling it away from the senior center. So if we take a little tour through what this might look like, typically you want one sort of main entrance into the community center because again, you want to be able to have an adjacent control point and know who's coming and going from the building. So where that red arrow is, you see there's a vestibule, you pass through that and you'd be in, you know, what sort of we envision to be call it a 1.5 story space, you know, beautiful sort of sense of entry. Would probably have some, you know, soft seating and other sorts of things. So if somebody wants to hang out or you're waiting for somebody to pick you up or just a place to hang out with a laptop and do some work, you know, a very sort of engaging sort of social environment. If you look straight, you see sort of a jogged wall. So we might envision that to be maybe it's a translucent wall, so you're not staring at somebody on a treadmill or some other exercise equipment, but you know, might give you a sense that there's some activity back there, and let the daylight sort of bounce around a little bit, you know, to give you a sense of the area. You know, sometimes I reference, you know, a 2-car garage. Everybody has a pretty good sense of what that looks like. You know, that's about 400 square feet. What's depicted here for that fitness room is, I think, close to 1,600 square feet. So, you know, you can park 8 cars in there. So it's, you know, far larger than what you currently have. It's probably, our experience is that it's one of the sort of highest demand spaces in a building like this. So highly desirable. If I take you back sort of that entrance, if you look to the left, to the south, you get a peek into that new gymnasium, and that gymnasium is double the size of your current gymnasium and probably 1.5 times its height. So sort of a high school sized basketball court. You know, typically you can drop a curtain right down the middle so you can run 2 concurrent programs. So that's something you can't do now. So it's conceivable you could be doing volleyball on one side and basketball on the other side. Gives you flexibility in terms of how you use that space. There's a stair in an elevator immediately adjacent to the gymnasium in that front entry point. And so I can envision that being sort of a, you know, architect call monumental stair, something that's inviting to take you up to that upper floor. And then there's a loop track around that gymnasium. We would envision that there'd be glass in part of it, so that again, as you're looping around on the track, you get views down in the gymnasium below, and then you also have views to the outdoors, and you have a beautiful park to the south. So I think you'd want to take advantage of that. There's a sort of a stretching zone, so when you come up the stair and get off the elevator, you have a place to, you're not immediately on the track, you have an opportunity to pause and stretch. And sometimes we even find places in those corners to put some additional fitness equipment. You might have another elliptical machine or bike or something. Some people like more privacy, so you might want to go up there and hang out and have a direct view to the outside. So some space to do additional things like that. And then if I put you back in that main lobby lounge, there's a sort of a connector corridor. I would hope it would be more interesting and fun than your current corridor. So it has spaces on either side as you pass by the control point. We've pulled Parks and Rec out of their current office space. I'll come back to that in a moment, but it's one singular space made up of offices and workstations and workrooms, but it's contiguous with that control desk so they can support one another. Across from that is a fitness studio, so that's large enough. I think you probably have 25, 30 people, in an aerobics class in a space like that. Has adjacent storage, so you can, park things and use that space for other things. Moving further to the north, there is a grouping of toilet rooms, restrooms that can serve the senior center or other parts of the building. If you go past through those areas, there's actually the formal men's and women's locker room with showers. So for people that want to come and work out and change and shower, I think that's something that you currently don't have. Across from that is a multi-purpose room. We see that as a space that could be divided with a movable partition into two spaces. So, conventional meeting type room. We find that in these community rec centers that what's very popular is they become party rooms. So a place to have a birthday party and you can cater food in and again, use other parts of the facility sort of themed around that party room. And as you transition north of there, you're in the sort of the existing primary part of the building. The current senior center offices, I think they're very sort of odd. They're in 3 different places and a bit gnarly in their layout and whatnot. So we've suggested reconfiguring that so that they're all in one common area. I think part of that's where the Parks and Rec offices is now. And then across from that is a multi-purpose child watch room and the senior game room. I think we've sort of depicted some billiards tables in there. So there's sort of a transition between, what happens in the existing building, what's new. I think, it's sort of a future step, but you've done some incredible renovations to the public spaces of your existing building. So I could see that sort of transitioning into this part of the building and making it seamless. So just to back up for a moment, this takes what came out of the survey and then was defined as program spaces and had square foot areas assigned to them based on, your needs and sort of our experience. And then it shows how it sort of might be laid out within the existing building, how it might be expanded. And again, we see a lot of sort of shared, you might even do some of that now between your meeting spaces and the senior center and other parts of the building. So more opportunity to do that sort of stuff. And as you transition from the senior center to the south, it gets a little bit more activated. You can imagine, some, which we think is a good thing, some noise and activity and a sense of energy coming from the gymnasium and that fitness center. And again, these photographs to the right and left just give you a peek of what those environments might look like. And then let's move on to the next slide. So we do these, again, not to get too caught up in the design, but it gives you a sense of the scale. So it visually doubles the form of the existing community center. I think that as this were to develop, you'd want to do it in such a way that it's in harmony with your township hall, in terms of its coloration and materials. So what's depicted here, we were inspired by your new logo and your branding and your front sign and sort of the swoopy lake wave. So this shows, maybe it has some sort of accent pieces that might define those entry points and reinforce your brand as Van Buren Township. So this is a bird's eye view. You can see the parking lot. You can loop around. Should be adequate parking to meet those needs. You can see that public plaza to the south of the existing building. So all kinds of uses for that. And that sort of secured internal parking defined by the buildings now in the east and west and the north. So let's move on to the next slide. Again, these are just sort of artistic images of what that building might look like. So again, it's we think it's a pretty substantial ad, and I think it's something you all can be proud of as it develops forward. I can't remember, is that the last slide? So this dives into a little bit more of what my colleague Robert Stempian would deal with. And Matt, I don't know if we want to address this at this point.
Yeah, very, very simply, and this is something I think we can talk about more at the next meeting when Robert's here, but we looked at what the projected concept would cost, which was the 7.2 million. And then we looked at which is was the budgeted amount. Then we looked at what the needs were, which Bert figured out from this project actually started in 2017 with a space and needs analysis that the township did for all of its programs. And we took that information plus the survey, which was done in 2019 and we did a lot of work in 2020 developing the space. But from the concepts of what people wanted, what residents wanted in the community center, we created that concept. And then Robert Stempian and Plant Moran Cressa took those spaces and looked at what it would cost to operate those spaces. And we looked at the current budget for Parks and Recreation. And we also looked at what the add-ons would cost based on industry norms for these costs. And because Robert and Bert do this all the time, they have a pulse on what, I don't know, if you have a square footage space of X, how many people need to operate this? How much does it cost for utilities? How much does it cost to keep it clean? And those costs were applied in this table. And in short, the first year that this operates, it adds about $200,000 to the operation cost of Parks and Recreation. And as programs, and that's if we did every single program and at the fullest extent of the concept. Now, we might not do that. We probably won't do all those things. And remember, this is just to give us an idea of what these things will cost. But as the years go on, the cost does slightly go up every year. but the initial cost is somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 in additional operational costs per year. So once you build it, you have to operate it. And so an additional $200,000 to $300,000 isn't outside of the realm of an increase for operating a brand new high-end facility such as this. And that's really, unless someone has questions later on this, it's as far as I really wanted to go on this without Robert being here. But this is something that's important to recognize, that the cost of building it is just as important as the cost of operating it. And there were 4 or 5 different iterations that Bert and Robert went through to get to this point. So there was a lot of discussion about costs and how things move around and how things are placed spatially. So that's just a kind of an overview. It's more money to operate, but we knew that going in. So I'll leave it at that. Elizabeth?
Thank you. So phase 1 was the actual feasibility study that was done by the 4 partners listed before. Phase 2 is where we're at right now, which is additional community engagement. The Board of Trustees and the Recreation Committee, we want to make sure that we receive as much community engagement as we need for everyone to feel comfortable in moving on into the next step, if that's what is decided. Phase 3, which would be design, construction management, the construction manager, and developing bid documents. And then phase 4 would be construction of the actual building. So now I believe that is the end of this slideshow.
So for me, I guess the question is, and I'm looking at some of the chat and Q&A things that have come about from people, regarding the gymnasium. Yes, you can with a curtain down the middle, you'll have 4 basketball courts or 4 basketball nets, such that you can run 2 games concurrent. Or like I said, pickleball on one side or volleyball on the other side. It allows you to, which is different than your current gym. You basically have 2 gyms, if you will. What I'm looking for is again, went through the survey, the results came back very strong. The sampling, it's not my expertise, but it's my understanding that the amount of sampling that was tapped into as part of that survey was significant, such that it does drive the correct sort of response. And then through that, developed the program, which was depicted here, both in sort of that list and in concept design. Is there anything that's happened in the last year that would change your thinking? There was a question about the pool. I did respond to that at least the surveys suggested that, some people wanted it, but when asked, would you pay for it? And they sort of changed their mind, and they are, I have a lot of experience with pools. They're very costly to build, and then they're very costly to maintain. So you need lifeguards, for example, on staff anytime anybody's in that pool environment.
Okay.
That's.
I didn't see, where's the funding gonna come from to build this? I didn't see that.
So I can talk about that very briefly. The fire station, there's a current fire station bond that the township took out, a while ago. And the bond is about to complete and be paid off. And so the amount of money that we're currently paying on that bond could be shifted to a new bond, which is already built into our budget. The amount of money we pay to pay off the bond is built into our current budget, which would mean we would be able to afford the bond to pay for the new community center without any additional funding. And that's the concept. That's why the budget was set at the budget number we kind of set at was $7.3 million. So the idea with the concept that you're seeing is no additional funding needed other than just to continue that bond payment, which we're paying right now.
Okay, so we'd have to go for a new bond for, that's gonna replace the fire station bond.
Correct.
Okay.
So at this
And keep
time,
going.
I'd like to,
Matt, we won't be voting on a bond.
pardon?
I said we wouldn't be voting on a bond.
Correct. We would just go out for a bond, correct?
Yeah.
Right. We would
Okay.
just replace that bond.
If I can interact for a minute, Todd, the idea was that, like the Director of Best was saying, currently the township is paying on a bond that was set out for the fire station #1, which we're paying yearly on that bond. The fire station on Belleville Road was built by the DDA. The township went out to bond for the fire station #1. That bond goes off the road 2022. So the budget that we are now incurring, paying for the fire station #1, that's where the 7.2 million came from. That's
Okay.
a starting point.
Okay,
Anything over that would have to be substantiated by some other source of funding.
okay.
That's where we're at right now.
All right, that makes sense. Yep. The other thing I noticed is, we're in of course, when you add the operating costs and compare it to the revenues, we're going to be in a net deficit. So what are the ways that we would offset that, or is there money in the budget to cover that?
So currently Parks and Recreation, as you may or as you should be aware, doesn't make back the money that it puts in. It's funded through the general fund. So it is something that we don't generate enough revenue from Parks and Recreation activities to cover all the costs. And that's why the general fund supplements Parks and Recreation activities. And that's why Parks and Recreation services are a great value to the community. That's where your tax dollars truly go to fund Parks and Recreation activities. So your current tax dollars fund these things that go on. The daddy-daughter dances, the Easter hoppy hullabaloos, the fitness classes, all those things. Now, there are fees for those things to pay instructors, but the overall program overhead is covered by the general fund. And so that's where some of that extra dollars would have to come from. But that's something I think we can delve into deeper when Robert's here. But making those questions at this point, I'd like to. One of the reasons now. Thank you, Bert, for the great presentation. One of the things I'd like to do now is all of you are here online that are attendees and watching at home on YouTube. Had the opportunity to comment through Facebook, through our website, through email, and make comments about what you liked and didn't like, what you'd like to see added. And we've compiled a kind of a summary of those results. Elizabeth has those. I'd like to share those with you.
Okay.
Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we received approximately 35 comments through this initial public comment period. 13 of them were received over email, 23 of them were received over Facebook or Instagram. So in the chart below, there's a list of items that were mentioned during these comments. So the comment that was mentioned the most had to do with having a pool, a lazy river, or a hot tub. Individuals that were in favor of that, it was mentioned 14 times. Those that were not in favor of the community center, that was mentioned 9 times. Being in favor of party rental rooms, activity rooms, basketball and volleyball courts were mentioned 3 times. being in favor of having a theater, a stage area, a full workout facility, indoor walking track, fitness classes, locker room and showers, kids indoor playground, or against the pool. Those were all mentioned twice. And then a baseball park, childcare, and charging for admission were mentioned one time. So I just want to make sure that we're understanding the way that this chart was developed. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because of 14 out of 35 individuals were in favor of a pool, we need to be careful to not say that, you know, half of the comments were in, half of the people want a pool. So just make sure it's just the number of times that it was mentioned in all of the public comments that we received.
Thank you. So, and one of the questions on the chat, and this is the appropriate time to talk about it, is there were multiple, if you went on our website, if you looked in the paper, the Belleville Independent, the paper of record, if you went on Facebook or any of our social media, there were opportunities and still are opportunities for the public to comment. You can log in to Facebook, to our Facebook page, and type out your comments. You can email us at public services, or public services at Van Buren, communications at vanburen-mi.org. You can go to Instagram and send things through Instagram. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail. You can call us and talk to us. You can send us emails directly as well. So there's multiple ways, and there'll be additional meetings in the future with the Recreation Committee and giving everybody a time to get comments. So that's the public comments that we got beforehand. At this point, I'd like to open it up to the committee members now for any questions, comments, and discussion. I'll be happy to spend a few minutes doing this with the committee, and then we were after the committee's gotten their questions out, we'll open up to the public to give their comments, as well as there are questions that I'll be reading off from the Q&A, and there are questions on the chat that are also burning a hole in the chat that we'll get to as well. So at this point, I would like to open it up to the members of the committee for questions and comments about the community center feasibility study and the current ideas that you may have or questions you may have.
I'd just like to say that, you know, so far it looks really good. The materials presented have a lot of useful information, and I want to study it some more. But as far as the pool's considered, I agree with your analysis that that's just too expensive. Pools are expensive to put in, they're expensive to operate. And we already have a pool over at the Metro Parks. They have a splash pad. I just drove through there when the bridge was shut down. So they have a pool, they have a splash pad, parking. So, you know, I think that's covered, and that this definitely is the way to go. It's just too expensive. But, and I like the concept of building it on the existing location and tying it into to our current facilities, instead of adding on to a new building or creating a new building, which means, you know, additional new parking lot and more infrastructure. So it's looking very promising. It's looking good. Thanks.
And I'd just like to echo what Todd said. Great presentation, looks good so far. As far as the pool goes, I see there's a ton of comments about the pool. Couple of things I'd recommend residents look into how Canton did this year with their pool, and what we see can happen from a global pandemic. The cost of a pool does not change when it's not being used. It still has to be maintained on a daily basis. And I know I work for Canton as a subcontractor. I know that they are struggling as far as financials go with their rec center this year. I just think that the pool is just too big for us. I know that we have spoke at end's length at these meetings about the pool. Without the funding, you see, I just don't see that the revenues of a pool outweigh the costs at the local level. It's difficult to staff. It's a huge lawsuit liability. I also was the former supervisor at the Turtle Cove Aquatic Center that Todd just mentioned. At its height in 1 year, it did very well. since that height, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, they've struggled to just meet operating costs and actually turn a profit. Now, that's a pool that's only open 3 months out of the year, but it offers its own set of challenges, as do indoor lap pools. And so I don't see how we move forward with something like this in Van Buren Township with a pool. As much as I would love for that to be the case, I don't see it being a possibility.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just have to say, I'd like to look at the gym a little bit more. I know even now, like, is there such a high demand between pickleball and, basketball? I'm just worried that is it going to actually be big enough for all the activities that happen on a continuous basis in this community? Because a lot of times people don't go there because it's so busy and you can't get in to do anything.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would like to look
So
at that.
that's an excellent question. And one of the things that we did during this space assessment, as well as through this process, was we looked at the programs that currently use the gym, and we looked at their space and their timing that they use the gym and how much space they use. And then we looked at the users and how many active users we had. And then we looked at potential users. And what we found is that pickleball is indoor pickleball is really dominated right now by the seniors, and they love to be in there during the day, and especially in the winter, because you can't play the pickleball outside in the winter. They also looked at basketball. The reason why there's not a lot of basketball being played is because the gym that we currently have has a lot of height restrictions and issues. And while it's great to shoot a couple hoops in there, it's hard to play a game, because you're passing the ball down the field or down the court. You can hit the gate, the divider bar from the roof line. So that's why Bert and his team put together the full-size gymnasium, which basically doubles the size of the gymnasium and allows for 2 basketball courts to go at the same time, because they'll be set basically 6 rims in the gym. You'll have 1 on each side, and then there'll be 2 on the other side, on each of the other sides. So you'll be able to go this way or the long way. And that divider, when it comes down, you could have volleyball on one side and pickleball on the other. During the day, you could have a ton of pickleball being played in there, or you could have half pickleball and half fitness. One of the problems that we had in the existing community center is the fitness rooms are really, during the day, they're a premium because there's a lot of programs that want to use them. And so, and some of the programs like Jazzercise require a larger space. This gymnasium, with the size of it, and the fitness studios allows us to have multiple programs going on the day for seniors, as well as multiple programs going on in the evening. So the size is really appropriate under the concept for all those current and future users. And one of the other things that the Board of Trustees did, which was a fantastic thing, this last fall, was leasing and building the new outdoor pickleball park over at Beck and Denton Road. And that creates an outdoor facility for summer pickleball, which will lighten the summer usage inside the gym and put more users outside, which is great for the community.
Well, thank you. Just quickly, 2 more things. The outdoor area, what is that space going to be that you had at the end of the gym? The outdoor area you had at the end of, like, the outside of the gym, there's an outdoor area. What is that use going to be for?
Elizabeth, you want to take this one, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up if you want to.
Oh, perfect.
Like, I just saw like it was bricks, but it didn't really say what they're using.
So it's really a placeholder. And Bert and his team did an excellent job of envisioning an outdoor plaza. But some of the uses that we see happening here is we have a fantastic summer concert series, and it desperately needs a home. And while the senior gardens was great last year, we believe that this could be even better with a stage being set up along the building side, and then seating being all the way in that lawn area so people can camp out in the lawn area and in that plaza area so they can enjoy the music from behind the recreation center. And you can also do outdoor movies for families. You could do outdoor events where you could have outdoor, the senior, I think it's the senior awards and the senior recognition day. They have a big event with a tent and they roast a pig, I think, or corn and all kinds of great stuff. And they invite a bunch of people. That would be a great place for this. It's a multi-purpose space and it fits in, it really nestles in there beautifully with between the community center and the baseball field under the concept. Any other comments from committee members?
I don't want to take over, just one more quick. How about storage? I just know in our current situation, like they're constantly moving equipment, and especially in the gym, having not enough place to prep for like the daddy-daughter dance, and just store those kind of things. Is there definitely going to be more added storage?
I think that Bert's the best person to answer this question because I think the storage question gets answered in design schematics. Bert?
Yeah, there's a significant storage area adjacent to the gym. I'm reading some of the chats and things. You know, I think you can do other events in here. You can set up a stage, you know, use it as an auditorium, a real multi-purpose type space. Sometimes we do these with like a rubber flooring. If you're a purist in basketball, you might not love it, but it allows you to use that space for lots of other types of activities without, you know, harming wood floors.
Yeah, so there's significant storage and the design, when they do, if the project is moved forward, storage is going to be one of the biggest components of our discussion. There's also significant storage currently above the community center, and that will have to be addressed as well. And that's something we'll be talking about if this project moves forward, integrating into the system.
Great, thank you.
Great question. Any other committee member comments?
Anyone else? I guess I'll say a couple of things. I've been busy reading the chat too, so I guess just for those that said they're saying that they haven't seen the anything about the recreation center, this is really new. This is the first meeting prior to the planning, in which Mr. Kosak was involved in. So the planning came first, which we said started from a strategic planning session, and it all arrived from that point to talking about a recreation center. And now that we actually can see where the funds can come from in order to build one without going to the resident, asking them for money, because previous surveys that were done asking would anyone be willing to pay for a recreation center, we got a significant amount of no's on that survey, and understandable. I mean, no one wants to pay higher taxes. So this was something that the board thought would be something that the township board could bring forward from revenues that basically we receive from the landfill funds, that we could pay for something without going to the public, the constituents for additional funds. I do want everyone to understand, though, I know we've done a lot of screens and a lot of different training and a lot of different educational pieces when we went out for the public safety millage. We tried to explain to the public exactly how your township funds work in regards to when we're talking about township taxes. The township doesn't receive a lot of taxes from your tax money. Each individual, from the tax dollar you pay, I know you walk in and you pay a significant amount of taxes, or you pay it with your mortgage, or however you pay your taxes, but we only receive about $26 per homeowner to the township to fund the revenues of the township. Everything else you pay goes to Wayne County Community College, the school system, the jails, the college, and about $28 per homeowners come to us. That basically just funds the major offices, what we call the state mandated offices of the township. The landfill fund and other things covers most of all the other revenues and the revenues that's made through building and planning. So when we start talking about taxes and giving back money, we really don't have anything to give back. That's why we're not talking about coming to the public to even ask for money. We have to try to build something that we can afford as a 31,000 resident community that would be comparable for our size. And we've did a lot of study, and everything that came back with that study shows that we can't build and operate a pool. And I know a lot of us would like to see one, but it makes no sense to build one if we know we can't fund it and we can't operate it. It would be like building a house that you can't afford. So that's where we are with that. If everybody think back, we did. I mean, other things was built in the community, which were supposed to be shared with the community. When I know I sit on the committee when we was talking about building the school, and that the pool at the school was supposed to have been something to share with the community. But as we all know, it's not shared with the community. And for whatever reason, and I think that we all know is because of costs associated with that. If it's shared with the community, that increases the cost, and it just can't be, it's not affordable. But that's where we are right now with the pool situation. I don't think that if we're taken out the vote, it would pass. That's my experience with millages. Just reading the comment, just trying to give some educational points back to see, so that you know where this arrived from and where the talking points came from. The committee has been talking. We've been talking about a recreation center or something for the community for a long time, and as you all know, I've been sitting on this committee for 12 years now, and I hear some comments saying, let's wait a little longer. I mean, how long are we going to wait for something good to happen in our community that we can afford? I think now is the time. If we're going to do it, now is the time. If a little longer may not come around again. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other committee members at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to move to the public comment period here. And I'm first going to start off with the question and answers that are on our website. Angela Bowers asked, is the pool, and just because I read your question doesn't mean you can't speak in the public comment period. I'm just going to answer these, try to get these squared away. Is the pool option definitely out of the question? As Clerk Wright just said, it's not necessarily out of the question. It may just not be economically feasible, and that's something that we can continue to talk about. But as you heard the clerk, it's an expensive option. Dave, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Dave Boer. His question is, at what point will this proposal be presented to voters for approval? Surely this large of an expenditure has not been approved based on a 250 person phone survey. As Clerk Wright said earlier, there wouldn't be anything going to approval because the money is already in the budget for these activities. But that's something that we can continue to talk about. If the cost does exceed that, there might be something that gets brought back to the committee, but only based on if there's a larger cost that's associated, which currently is not planned to happen. The next question is from Angie. What ways are you getting community input on the final design? I think we've talked about that through social media, telephone, email, phone call, as many ways as you can come in and visit us at Township Hall, newly renovated Township Hall, open by appointment only from 10 to 3, Monday through Friday. Anonymous attendee says, who's going to pay the $300,000 cost? As you heard Clerk Wright already say, the money collected from the landfill tipping fees will help to supplement the $200,000 to $300,000 extra operating costs if that comes that high, and that cost is already is there in the general fund out of the revenues that are already generated in the budget. And David Bohr said again, I resent the tactic by the board passing this off as a no-cost project, whereas it is actually shifting one expiring bond for a new one. There should be a public vote or reduce our property taxes after the 2022 bond expires. Thank you. We'll put that into the comments that are sent back to the Board of Trustees. And now the next piece is the chat. Has anyone consulted with Romulus Rec Center concerning the pool? Oh, wait, I'll go back up to the top because Tim, I think, was the first one. His first question regarded was about the how many basketball nets were going to be available. We've answered that, so you can run 2 games at once. Bob Day said 150 per year membership per person or per family. Currently, there is no plan to charge a membership fee. In the budget, we created a membership fee to show what type of revenue would be generated so that you could see that. But currently, there is no plan to have a membership fee if you are a citizen of the township, resident of the township. The next one is from Ashley. I have 2 questions. How will this project embrace the opportunity to serve the communities through the pandemic while envisioning innovative ways to provide programs and services after COVID-19? I think we have a year to figure that out. This is going to take a year for us to design and a year for us to build, at least. So I think that question is going to be answered in time. The next one, how are inclusive racial equity and accessibility practices being integrated in the planning and implementation design? Zoom, and then also I'll answer that one. That's a very good question. I think that's a question we'll bring up at the next meeting. I think we'll sit down and talk a little bit about that in the next meeting when Robert and Bert are here, but that's a great question. I think we have planned to be as inclusive and equitable and have as much accessibility as possible in our facility, but I'd like to be able to have Robert answer that. Finally, Zoom meetings are very restrictive for a community for this type of activity. We agree, and as soon as we can get back in person, we will, I promise. If we have to have a meeting in August after the design is done so we can all meet in person and talk about this, we will do that. What are all the ways that you're getting input? We've talked about that. From Karen Marsh, is this voter millage driven? Will this go to the vote? As Clerk Wright said, it is not millage driven and currently is not planned to go to a vote. The Scott family were members of the surrounding communities surveyed. I was not aware there was a rec center considered. What would we need to do to consider funding a pool? I think we've answered that. And yes, we did look at other surrounding communities rec centers. We actually traveled to a bunch of different ones and met with their the people who operate them, and talked about pluses and minuses before we went any further with this project. This one's from Claudier. Sorry, I didn't know there was a community center, didn't get to do a survey. I'm very involved. I'm not sure why I wasn't aware of this. That being said, I would suggest a theater or at least a stage area to be used for concerts. We both have a community band and chorus. These 2 groups would enjoy to have an area to present their concerts, store their belongings, hold their rehearsals. Would this be taken into consideration? I'll take on the question. We've talked about this outdoor stage. But there is been a lot of talk about putting together a theater / auditorium as part of this project. There's a strong community that want a strong in a community for fine arts. It's something that we could utilize for multiple things: conferences, state of the township addresses, plays, presentations, large training events for outside agencies and for community events. So it is something that we can look at. Karen M says, I was not surveyed either, being a resident since the 70s. Where was this survey? It was a telephone survey, Karen, and it was done by Epic MRA, who does most of the polling in Michigan. They're the #1 polling firm in Michigan. From the Scott family, the plan does look good. Just want an indoor pool to be considered. Thank you. This one's from Doris. I would like a pool. I think it's a great advantage for seniors. Thank you, Doris. From TG, I would like to see outdoor fitness equipment on the grounds. This could have been very useful to a COVID-19 shutdown and just outdoor formal exercise in general. Many parks in Detroit have adopted this model. There's actually a fantastic outdoor fitness station that was built in Canton Township at a subdivision. We've looked at it. It may be something we add to Quirk Park, but thank you, we'll look at that. Angela Bowers, would it make more sense to wait until you can, instead of putting a Band-Aid, fix the existing place? Senior aerobics are huge. Truly believe people will pay more for birthday parties and long term. So if you want to have a bigger one for a pool, why not wait a bit? That's a very good comment. Thank you. Bob Day, I would like to see this project scrapped and have the money go back to the taxpayers. The Romulus Athletic Center has everything and more, and it's only 5 minutes away. Let's see. Scott family says the vending area needs to be looked at with maybe a coffee bar. Thank you. Multi-purpose rooms would have a kitchenette, potentially a refrigerator. Let's see. An old high school with community access to the pool where they held class for seniors. Thank you for that. Earlier, I thought it was said the bonds were for the fire station. The existing bonds are for the fire station. When that goes away, we would renew the bond for the project. Tim Krager, good explanation, Leon. Pool would be nice, but the numbers are high. From Angela Bauer, would the yearly daily passes pay for upkeep? It would raise about $60,000 and not enough to pay for the upkeep, but it would help. But there's no plan to have a membership fee. From Reggie, Trustee Miller, contact your board of trustees for comments, concerns, and input. From Tim, another comment about contacting the Romulus Rec Center concerning their pool budget. And Trustee Miller said, people have asked why the Belleville was included in the survey, and a children's playscape is a must. Thank you for those comments. Belleville was included in the survey because Epic MRA wanted to get a full geographic representation of the area, but the people who were from Belleville were easily identified. The comments and input from Belleville was easily identified and can be separated out. And we looked at them together, we looked at them separately, and the data was pretty similar. So that was their method that they suggested. There's also a handful of questions on YouTube, and I'm going to ask Alicia Albrecht to give us a handful smattering of that before we get into the comments from actual residents who are on the Zoom call now. Alicia?
Yeah, Mr. Cash said, my family would like to see our rec center to have all the offerings that the Romulus Center has, even if we have to pay for a membership. Let's say Sue Day said, so with this analysis for future expenditures, the day-to-day running of the rec center, I will have a membership fee to join the center I already paid for. I think we kind of answered that. The idea is not to have membership fees. Sue also said, why do we need one when there is one right down the road in Romulus? Reg Ion commented that we got a lake. Again, another comment about maybe a second version of COVID. So just be aware, again, can we use this building? I think that's good, planning for the future. Let's see, other questions. There's a lot of chat in the YouTube, but not a lot of questions.
All right.
Yeah, I think we can move forward.
Thank you. So at this time, we'd like to open it up for the attendees to ask questions or make comments as part of our public comment period for attendees. You can raise your hand on the chat, and if you raise your hand as a participant, Alicia will bring you up to speak. So if you'd like to be brought on and speak to the committee to make your comments, just hit the raise your hand button, or is it *9?
Yes, if you're calling in on a phone, it is *9. However, if you're in the Zoom, it's your virtual hand. Yep, you got it. Anyone out there like to make a public comment, feel free to raise your virtual hand.
Are there any takers? It doesn't seem like it. At this point, I'd like to offer the committee another opportunity to make an additional comment. Oh, there's 2 hands up in the attendees.
Great. We will start with Mr. Kreger. I will allow you to talk, and you just have to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Very good meeting we're having here. I just was wondering, and I'm not saying I'm for or against a pool. What I see so far is very nice. But did you consider doing something like we just did with the library, where we got all 3 communities involved? Then we could afford something better. That's my question.
That's a great question.
Matt, I can answer that.
Thank you, clerk.
The reason the library was able to do that because it's a district library. We're a board of trustees and we govern Van Buren Charter Township, and that's it. We can't go to another community and ask them to vote for something that we're trying to build. So that's the difference between the two.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Kreger?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alicia, would you like to bring Trustee Miller up, please?
I would. Yeah, Trustee Miller, you just have to unmute yourself and you should be able to talk.
Hi, everyone. I don't know who's on this call or how many's out there, but
unmute yourself.
Sorry, Trustee Miller. Try that again.
let's try this again. Hi, Trustee Miller here. A couple of things I wanted to say, that if you have comments, ideas, suggestions, criticisms, you can reach out to any board member. My email address is rmiller@vanburen-mi.org. I get back to everyone. A couple of things. Mr. Kreger had mentioned that couldn't we, like what the library did, go out for donations? We can on a smaller scale. I talked to Kevin McNamara about, well, what if we wanted to sponsor or have a donation for a certain room? Say the teen center, where we accept donations for the teen center, pretty much like the library did. I know the Atchinsons donated money for a particular area. The Board of Trustees even pulled our money and was able to put up a plaque, and we sponsored. So we have talked about that. Leon's talked about that, and Kevin McNamara is on board with the idea. A couple of things. The pool has been mentioned many, many times, and perhaps in this design, we include space for that future build. And if we want to add a pool later, the board's open to that. We know that, but maybe it would take a ballot initiative. We could look at that in the future. It's no for now because of cost, but it's not no forever. A couple of things that we should pay attention to is that this community center serves all races, all all types of people, all ages, and it should reflect a little bit of something for everyone, from the toddlers to senior citizens. So I'm all in favor for a cultural center area. I think that's important too for diversity. And I would also like to see a child's playscape area, little playground. You see them in malls. That doesn't cost too much money. I think it's important that we have a little area with also a few community benches around so parents can watch their children play. I think that's important. A team game room also. So I wanted to add in that. And when I wanted to ask, when is the next meeting on this for the public?
Elizabeth?
While we're looking that up, I just want to go back to the YouTube comments. Red Ion asked, so will Belleville and Sumter people get to use it for free, or will they have to buy a membership?
Undetermined.
So that's a fantastic question. And I think that's something that as we move through this process and move forward, that will get decided. I know that for some community centers, they charge a one rate membership for residents and one for non-residents. That's higher. Some community centers say they have to be residents of the community, but that's something we're going to have to work through over time.
The next Recreation Committee meeting is next month, March 9th.
Okay.
We also have another question about the landfill funding. Can you talk about that? Because originally it was mentioned that the bond was from police and fire or public safety.
Sure. The land as a host community for our for the waste management landfill and the other landfill in the community, we get provided a tipping fee which supplements the budget for the township, and that money is used to do great things for the community. It provides services, it provides improvements for projects, and provides upgrades to our buildings and services that our community needs, wants, and desires. And this will be the first large-scale project that these funds could be available for. Currently, under our current budget, we wouldn't need any landfill funds to do that. But our operating costs may be offset by landfill funds or other funds. So this is, it's just one of the ways that the township with 30,000 residents has the services of a community that has 50 to 60,000 residents. If you look at the services that Van Buren Township provides, the clerk's office of elections, our treasurer's office, our assessing office, our senior programs, parks and rec, as well as public services. We provide services at a level that a community with 60,000 residents have, but we only have 30,000 residents. And we do that, one of the ways we do that is because the landfill is in our community and provides additional revenue for us to do these things. Clerk Wright, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I guess in excess, what Matt is saying is that the landfill fund pays for the bonds. So they work hand in hand. So it's not a difference there. The revenues that we get from the landfill pays for the bond. And what we were saying was that the current bond that we're paying for the fire station #1 goes off our roll. What we make is paid for in 2022. So that frees up some revenue that we can use for other purposes, which we're now looking at recreation center. And I want everybody to remember, just because a pool is not in the plans now, I mean, it's something that could be brought up later if it's really the desire to be put on a roll and voted on. You could always build an aquatic center. I mean, we just purchased the land. If everyone, I don't know whether everyone knows, we acquired the land across the road to the north of us. The township owns that property now. So we have property to build anything as long as we have the funds to pay for it. So if that's something the residents wants to do in the future, we have the land to build. So I guess what I'm saying, you bring the money, we'll build it. So just because we're not entailing this now in the current plans. These plans are not set in stone, but that don't mean that we can't build an aquatic center or something that hosts a pool in the future. Right now, we're trying to put something in the framework that I think, we think that a 31,000 constituent community can afford and deserves, because we do put up with a landfill, but we get great revenues from that landfill. But I think the money that we get from that landfill should be used to do something that validates and represents our constituency.
All right, thank you. And the last question that I'll answer before we move on here was from Angela Bowers. How long do you anticipate before we outgrow this and need a larger facility? One of the things that Plant Moran Cressa did in part of this process was looked at population growth projections from Semcog, and our population projection is relatively stable at 29 to 31,000 over the next 15 years. And so outgrowing the facility, the lifespan of this facility, Bert, if we build it, how many years is it? What's the lifespan of this current recreation facility before they have to renovate? What's the current, Bert?
I don't, I mean, you should be good for 20 years before you're getting into any heavy, re-roofing, mechanicals and other sorts of things. But, it's
great. And thank you. Reggie Miller also, Trustee Miller also said people are asking for a racquetball court. That is something that we're looking at as well, because they can play volleyball in there too. So that's something that's interesting. With that,
Matt, we do have a question in YouTube. How long after the landfill is capped do we still get the money?
Per the signing of an agreement in 2018, the landfill will be expanding. We have at least another 40 years of revenue coming in from the landfill.
Thank you.
Yep. With that, Chairman Bellinger, I believe we've gotten through all the comments, and we still have a handful of items for general discussion. I believe from staff side, I think we're good at this point. Would you like to move on? Seeing your head shake, yes?
Yes, ready to move on here. I don't have any of the updates from the general discussion. I don't know if someone does, but I do not.
Yep, I can guide us through that. Under general discussion, the normal business of the Recreation Committee, there are two items. The first is the outdoor pickleball leagues. With the creation of pickleball park over at Van Buren Park, which is a pickleball facility and tennis facility, the Parks and Recreation Department is going to be developing outdoor pickleball leagues for the spring, summer, and fall. So as long as you can be outside and play and the gates are open, there'll be leagues that will be set up through the Parks and Rec Department. And it's an exciting time. There's discussion on having senior league, a younger age group league with teens and college age, under 30, I guess that's the good way to describe it, as well as a competitive league. So if you want to play true competitive pickleball, and I know there's a thing because I saw it on ESPN the other day, there'll be an opportunity for that, as well as free play at the outdoor pickleball courts. So please stay tuned to our website for that. And if you want to sign up, there's good news. Elizabeth?
That transition, that was amazing. So the township partnered with RecDesk, which is a recreation software company, in late 2020 in order to move many of our parks and recreation operations to a paperless system. This way, community members can easily engage with all of our operations. So Rec Desk will be a site on our new township website that allows participants to sign up and pay for programs online, reserve a pavilion, purchase a pass to go into Van Buren Park, all sorts of things like that. So over the past few months, the Public Services and Communications Department, with assistance from the Parks and Rec Department, we've built the backbone of the system. So we'll be able to go live with it in March or April, once the rest of the Department of Parks and Rec is trained on it and everyone feels comfortable with the new system. So we're all extremely excited about this opportunity. It allows us to get a little bit more of a 21st century feel for our residents. It also allows increased accessibility and visibility to our parks and programs.
Are there any questions regarding the recreation updates? Seeing no questions, we'll move into the park updates. It was brought to our attention that there were a handful of benches at Riggs Heritage Park that had come loose from their foundations. They were a unique style of foundation that were very shallow, and when people would sit on them, they had the potential to fall over. The Public Services Department, along with Parks and Recreation, will be replacing those benches with new benches to make them safe and to have them last a long time. So when you go on your nature walk at Riggs Heritage Park, you can take a break on a wonderful seat and watch the wildlife and the grasses and the flowers. Secondly, there is a lot of activity getting ready to happen at French Landing Park. We are in the process of doing a phase 1 improvement to French Landing Park, and we're designing that as we speak. The French Landing Park improvements include a large, the best way to describe it is an outdoor tent, which is a pavilion. And it's a beautiful space underneath this pavilion that will allow for picnicking, recreation classes, meetings, and hanging out near the water and enjoying a cool beverage. Also, the sidewalks will be all redone. All the turf grass will be redone. Landscaping will be done out there. And it's part of phase 1 for the improvements. So you're going to see a brand new base level of French Landing Park. You've seen some of the stuff. At the next meeting, we're going to go over, before the final design gets approved, will be brought to the Recreation Committee for comments and approval. But I just wanted to touch base on it today so that you're aware of some of the things that are going to be happening. In fact, one of the things that's going to be happening there, as well as some of our other parks, Elizabeth?
These transitions, I'm loving them. Yeah. Good segues. So the Public Services and Communications Department partnered with Ideation Orange to design new signage for township parks. So many of the current signs that are out at our parks are outdated or in need of repair. Some areas even lack some signage that we need to have up. So as the investment in township parks grows through grant projects such as the French Landing project and capital improvements, it's important that the township reinvest in how our community members and visitors are welcomed into our parks. It's just as important how confidently they are able to move around inside of our parks. So effective signage, we believe, can make someone not only feel welcomed, but secure and confident. So to work towards our goal of a cohesive sign family to use in the parks, we designed 5 different designs for signs. There's a large park entry sign, a medium one, a general rules sign, a directional wayfinding sign, and an amenity sign. So Ideation Orange, if you don't know, is a company out of Royal Oak that actually did our proposed gateway sign designs as well, which we will be bidding out in early spring this year. So they designed the park signage off of the gateway sign. So it will allow for a very cohesive feel around the township. People will know that they're in BBT after seeing the gateway signs and then also being welcomed into our parks with the park signage. So the signage concepts, they'll be brought to the township board next week for feedback, asking for approval to move forward into the bidding process. We just wanted to give the recreation committee a heads up of what was going on with them. Staff will also be recommending, once we get the prices back, that the first large park entry sign will be included as part of phase 1 of French Landing park improvements.
And this will be something that we'll bring to the March meeting and show you guys, because this meeting we knew it was going to be very long. It's something that we want to get your comments and recommendations on too. So we'll be bringing that to the next meeting. So with that, Chairman Bellinger, I believe we are at the end. If there's any additional comments from the board committee members or yourself, the staff has completed the agenda.
Well, very good. If there is no other comments, I will seek a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I support that motion.
Motion by Mr. O'Neill, seconded by Clerk Wright. If you don't mind, Ms. Doring, a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Todd O'Neill,
Aye.
Denise Willoughby,
Aye.
Leon Wright,
Aye.
Daniel Bellinger.
Aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you guys very much, and we'll see you guys March 9th, same time.
Thanks.
Everyone for your comments and input. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.